It was quite surprising, Garish, how quickly the authorities managed to extradite Mr Duterte, the former president of the country. He arrived back in Manila yesterday morning. He'd been in Hong Kong for the weekend, where there's a large Filipino diaspora. He'd addressed a campaign event there, a campaign rally there, alongside his daughter, the current Vice President, Sara Duterte. Now, during that event, he had said he was willing to accept his fate, but he questioned what he'd done wrong, saying that everything he'd done as president was for the peace and tranquility of Filipinos. Now, while Mr Duterte was the president, he actually withdrew the Philippines from membership of the International Criminal Court in 2019 in response to them starting their investigations into his war on drugs. So it is possible that he thought he was perfectly safe coming back to the Philippines, because no longer being a member meant that authorities weren't obligated to execute that warrant. But as we saw, he was presented with that warrant, arrested upon arrival. He was taken shortly after to a nearby military airbase, where we saw through social media posts by his daughter Veronica Duterte that he was then questioning the validity of this arrest warrant that had been issued by the ICC for crimes against humanity. Now, he stayed at that airbase for some time. I've spoken to one of Mr Duterte's lawyers, Salvador Pinello, who said that while he had family with him, he as a lawyer had been denied access to Mr Duterte. His daughter posted some images of him receiving medical treatment there, but he was eventually put onto that chartered Gulfstream jet, and that plane took off late last night, Philippines time. Now, as you mentioned, it stopped over in Dubai today. There are local reports in the Philippines that Mr Duterte received some medical attention in Dubai. The plane was delayed by some hours. It's now on its way, we believe, to Rotterdam, and it's still some hours until it's expected to arrive there.
So, Kathleen, what's expected to happen once he gets there in terms of the judicial process at the International Criminal Court?
Well, the ICC process when a person who's been charged arrives is that they are given a first appearance which takes place very shortly after their arrival. It will confirm his identity and set a date to begin the confirmation of charges hearing. Now, at that hearing, the prosecution must present enough evidence to show that the court is able to go to trial, and usually within 60 days a decision will be made by the court as to whether they're going to proceed, and of course from there they continue with regular trial proceedings. Now, the court has issued this warrant over Mr Duterte's deadly, brutal war on drugs that took place during his time as president from 2016 up to 2019, when he withdrew the Philippines from the court. However, the warrant does also cover some of his time as the mayor of the southern city of Davao. Now, during this time, thousands of Filipinos were killed. Of course, Mr Duterte really made his name as a straight-talking political hard man who was open about his plans to kill people, to stop the country's drug trade, and of course we saw by official statistics more than 6,000 people were killed in that time, but human rights groups say that number is much, much higher. We've seen in the Philippines since this arrest that there are still supporters of Mr Duterte's. He was deeply popular as president, and we've seen those supporters come out, but we've also seen lots of Filipinos attending mass and vigils to remember those who were killed during that deadly war on drugs. Here's what a few had to say.
Duterte was able to get due process, but when my child was killed, there was no due process. He sleeps in a nice bed, while my child is rotting at the cemetery. It's been 8 years, almost 9 years, since my son became a victim of Duterte's war on drugs.
I hope Duterte cannot escape. That's what I truly feel. I am so happy, but it's not a complete happiness, because I know there is still a long way to go.
It is favourable for us to go to the ICC because they are a victims-centred court.
And whatever lessons we get from there, we hope to build an arena here in the domestic courts.
So human rights groups and lawyers have welcomed this development. Human Rights Watch saying it shows the importance of the International Criminal Court and international law. Amnesty International calling it a monumental development. A lawyer in the Philippines, Neri Colmenares, who's representing some of the families of the victims, says that finally they will be able to have their day in court and get some form of justice for their loved ones. But while all this has been going on, Salvador Pinello, the former presidential counsel to Mr Duterte, has also filed a petition with the Supreme Court of the Philippines to try and challenge his detention. Now, despite the fact that Mr Duterte is on his way to The Hague, Mr Pinello feels that it is still possible to have him returned to the Philippines. Meanwhile, Mr Duterte's daughter, the Vice President, Sara Duterte, has also left the country and is on her way to The Hague to help her father during these proceedings.
Okay, Kathleen Calderwood, thanks very much for that update.